May I suggest a number of other superordinate goals that need serious attention? Immediate needs that do not divide us by race, religion, partisanship, gender, or other possibly tense biases. How about we work towards reducing the number of suicides that are happening every day because of physical and emotional isolations and social breakdowns due to the coronavirus shutdown? How about human trafficking of all kinds? Every day, innocent men, women, and children are being taken to the most horrific conditions and scenarios most of us would never allow our minds to even imagine. How about how we are tearing down the livability of our own earth, our home, the only one we have? I don't care what side of climate change you're on. That's not what I'm talking about. Our home should never be a partisan-based topic, ever. I'd like to see a real-world test take place. Stop clicking on what they're putting in front of us and keeping us engaged in their game. What would happen if an overwhelming majority of us move over to another superordinate goal? Would they start addressing that with as much energy instead? Would they consider that if they really want to serve the interests of the people, they would follow our lead? Maybe in an effort to keep our attention so that they might prove real value to us, where we no longer give them power to control us with fear, hate, and negative tactics. Otherwise, we might just realize they're the most threatening group. Earlier, I asked the question, can we trust those who say they'll fix it for us? Our leaders in office have a responsibility to aid us in our pursuits of superordinate goals that emphasize what brings us together. Yes, I believe some are, yet with some it seems they've learned how to take advantage of our interest for doing good and acting humanely and turn them just enough to work for their special interests, all the while making us think they are working on our interests. Again, the tactic is called framing bias. They've used it to pass bills that look like they're working with us just enough, but affords them a bigger gain in the meantime. Our journalists and news outlets have a responsibility to stop driving single-sided narratives that deepen bias and prejudice against us as collective humanity. I challenge our media outlets and journalists to not just seek to outrage its audience to incite bias and clicks, because we've seen that hate gets clicks, but put human interest above SEO positions and ad dollars. When you publish articles and videos, work on reducing bias. I challenge you to present a solution that goes beyond a partisan preference-only solution. Reach higher. Reach for something more valuable than that easy access you've commonly found and not gotten us anywhere in the current conflicts with. Reach higher than the bottom shelf for solutions. We must direct our efforts to work together, beyond biases and the facade that there are only two groups, only two facades to define our nation of diversity and complex humanitarian interests. In the earlier result of the Robbers Cave experiment, the two groups of kids realized their success was less connected to the us versus us model that they may have first had. My group versus your group in the us versus us model. It proved to be an us two groups versus them, the third and most truly manipulative group, that they had to manage their path to success around. The act of not playing into the conflicts incited by the them group removed the power the them group had to manipulate the two us groups. As a result, these two us groups increased their likelihood to come together to accomplish anything they set out to accomplish. We can resolve our issues by recognizing what's feeding our bias, laying down our differences for a while and choosing to work together, being aware that outside aggravators, inside and outside our fences, will try to keep us from success. Learn what those tactics look like. Don't fall prey to hate, division, and incited conflicts. It's part of our natural human behavior to coalesce with like kinds and like minds. That may be to simply enjoy the feeling of safety and security that comes from being part of a community. We must remain aware that while doing this, we are also creating a separatism from those unlike in kind or mind. But how far, how much, and with what bias, if any, and to what end? Should we blame ourselves for what seems to be growing more and more out of control? The short answer is yes and no. Yes, in that awareness is ours to be had and to act on in light of understanding. No, in that just like in the Robbers Cave study, the campers were given manipulated conditions by their leaders. Conditions that drove their behaviors to divide and fight against rather than coalesce to work together for higher common goals. Human, friend, relative, neighbor, or as in the Robbers Cave study, camp participant, are all true statements of every one of us. Thank you.